The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, Earnestly Speaking podcast. Let's get it. I'm a giant in New York, in Miami carry heat. So much more in store, my product can flood the street. Opinion Nation Godfather, CEO. Puff in the late 90s, gon' see me blow. Oh, got my hustle on, no imitation of bad. Army of untouchables, Opinion Nation staff. Never an off season, homie, check the numbers. Heart throbbing my own right, supplying southern comfort. Earnestly speaking, my ego is well fed. Earnestly speaking, you're too feeble and no threat. See, I'm like a hurricane, you're a mild breeze. Earnestly speaking, leaving Eli a dynasty. Shake!
Earnestly Podcast coming to you April 4th, 2024. Yet another podcast this week. Now bringing in, of course, NBA author Greg Hrinya here with us. Greg, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I always enjoy coming on.
I honestly, like, I this week alone, maybe this is just a week, but this is like the only week of the year I felt like I haven't really been tied to the NBA as I normally am. I think it's because WrestleMania. I think because WrestleMania is a couple days, and I'm a big wrestling fan. So, and I've been doing the watch-alongs and stuff. I've been doing a lot of podcasts pertaining to WrestleMania this week. So I feel a little bit disengaged in NBA right now, and that's kind of a bad thing because we're literally within 2 weeks of the playoffs.
It's the wrong time to be disengaged because the standings are changing on a nightly basis. So,
and that's the thing.
I mean, if you look 2 days ago, Indiana was the 5 seed, and this morning they're the 7 seed. So I mean, and in the West, you got 3 teams jockeying for 1. You got teams jockeying from 7 through 10, or 6 for that matter. So I mean, there's movement every night. I was going to guess it was because of the NCAA tournament, not necessarily.
No, I haven't been. Are you watching that?
What, the NCAA or wrestling?
Yeah. Well, that's the NCAA.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not a wrestling guy, but I watched a little of it. I'm really more of an NBA guy. I mean, you watch 1 or 2 college games, and then you turn on an NBA game, and there's a stark difference between skill level. So yeah, I'm an NBA guy through and through.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm a wrestling guy, but I'm not normally week to week. I'm more of an old school guy. I'm more of an 80s Hulkamania. So, but what happens this around time of year is that I watch I watch back a lot of the old WrestleManias. Just kind of get geared up. So I've been watching that, using my me time to watch that, as opposed to watching the NBA League Pass, which is again kind of stupid. I guess I'm a little childish or whatever. I get it. People saying, you like wrestling still 43 years old? Yeah, but for me, I've always been fascinated by the business. That's why it's fascinating business, and it's still big time. It's still a big deal today.
Well, people could say the same thing about me with basketball. Oh, you're still watching that much basketball?
Yeah, but basketball is an actual real thing. It's actually a real event. I mean, wrestling is not fake. It's scripted. Mm-hmm. I always say it's not fake. It's scripted. Mm-hmm. And the bumps are real. They do get injured. So, but we're here to talk NBA because I've done enough wrestling talk for the week on this podcast. And you're discussing the teams, movements and stuff in the conference. This is a big deal now because the Knicks now could be a team now that's, all of a sudden they went from a team that was probably a snug top 4 team in the East now to they've kind of slipped a little bit last couple of games, here and there. They've been a little inconsistent. And go ahead.
When the Knicks, and sorry to cut you off, when the Knicks had Randle, Anunoby, and Brunson, they were 12-1 and they had the best defensive rating in the league.
Correct.
So I mean, you could have made a very strong argument that they were on their way to being the 2 seed.
Right.
And now they lose 3 straight games. Randall's out for the year, which we'll touch on.
And that's the news now, broke. Randall's out for the year, and now they're only 2 ahead of Miami, for 6, and not too far ahead of the 7th spot. And if they continue slipping here, and in Philadelphia now with Joel Embiid back, you get some wins here and there, they may find themselves in a playing situation now.
Yeah, so I'm going to be consistent with the last couple podcasts that we've done, and I've always been on Philadelphia's bandwagon. I mean, they really didn't slide. I mean, obviously they're in the play-in, but if you look at what could have happened losing Embiid, and they've missed Maxey for a number of games too.
It's true.
They really could have fallen down with the likes of Chicago, Atlanta, or even out of it. So, I mean, they were able to just keep their head above water just enough. They've got 6 games. Philadelphia's got 6 games left. They've got the weakest strength of schedule left in the league. So, I mean, it's a 38.2 winning percentage. So they play Orlando, they play Miami, and then they've got 4 games against teams that have already been eliminated. So, I mean, if Philadelphia eats their Wheaties, they could conceivably win the last 6 games of the year and see where that puts them. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that I'm predicting that happens, but let's say they lose the next game to Miami, they win the other ones, they finish 5-1. I mean, if the Knicks keep struggling, like, you know, where does that put everybody? And I mean, if I'm Philadelphia, I want Milwaukee in the first round. You know, I want to get that 7th seed.
Yeah.
Because I think that even though Milwaukee, I think, is going to turn it up in the playoffs, like, if you have a healthy Joel Embiid, and he's coming back to a team that's different than when he left. So, I mean, they've added Buddy Hield, they've added Kyle Lowry. Not that those are great players per se, but I'm curious to see how Buddy Hield plays when you have defenses throwing multiple bodies at Embiid. So now he's getting open shots that he wasn't getting when he first came over. So, I mean, they picked up Buddy Hield with nobody really to take attention away from him. So he struggled since he's been there, but you don't have an MVP, you know, clogging the paint. So, I mean, now that that's there, I'm really curious to see how these last 6 games go for them.
Yeah, I feel like Philadelphia now with Embiid back in time, you know, and within range of still getting a 6th seed if they play your cards right. They are definitely the most dangerous team now in that bottom half of the bracket right now because they were a runaway top 3 team before his injury.
And I still think Miami's dangerous because they've got the best coach. And I feel like that is an advantage over a 7-game series versus a random night in February.
Right.
So, I mean, like, you know, you're playing a back-to-back against, you know, the Wizards in March or February or March. Maybe the advantage of Spoelstra isn't as big as it is when he gets the game plan. Okay, this is how we're going to take out your best guys every single night. Here's how we're going to attack. Jimmy Butler's more engaged. I mean, he can say whatever he wants about there's no such thing as playoff Jimmy. Like, he does not engage in the regular season like he does in the playoffs.
And I think Terry Rozier rounding out in the right time now too. Also, team pressure off of Bam and Jimmy is huge.
And Rozier was, I know he struggled when he first got over there, but I mean, he is such a huge upgrade over Lowry. And I mean, he was having the best year of his career in Charlotte. And I mean, I get that no one cares what goes on in Charlotte, but I mean, he's a guy that can shoot threes and he's a guy who can move. I mean, Kyle Lowry, like, he's a heady veteran at this point, but I mean, he's not really striking fear in the heart of opponents.
So the Knicks have been out Randle for a while. So the talk was, okay, well, even though Randle's hurt and he'll probably be back, I mean, he'll be back, but now he's out for the year. Does this now change the conversation with the Knicks now? Because we were talking about this Knicks team like not even 2 weeks ago as being possibly number 2 team in the East. Possibly the you know, the ceiling is the conference finals against the Celtics. And now, do we now reevaluate our thinking now with knowing that Randle's out for the year? Now they'll probably get OG back, which would be huge still, but again, it's the ball game. We're doing a 7-game set, supposed to like a random Friday in February and March. Do we reevaluate the Knicks ceiling here?
Yeah, their ceiling is 1 round. Winning 1 round. So getting to the 2nd round, I think, would be the ceiling, kind of like it was last year. Mainly because, you know, right now they're scheduled. I mean, if the season ended today, it changes every night. But let's say it ends today. They play Orlando. I mean, you could have a lot of 87, 84 games there. You know, 2 teams that probably aren't going to be scoring much. But, you know, if they play Cleveland, if they play Orlando, I think you could make an argument that the Knicks would win those series. But then once you're getting on to the 2nd round, you know, if you're facing a Miami or you're facing Milwaukee or whomever it might be, I don't know that without Randle, and Randle struggled in the playoffs historically, but I mean, there have been reasons for that. I mean, injuries, and I mean, now you look at Brunson's ascension. I mean, that made Randle's life so much easier. So, I mean, you haven't really seen like a healthy Randle.
Would you feel differently if Randle was healthy? Would you feel different with the next ceiling being the conference finals?
Oh, yeah, totally. I would say that they could give Boston a run for their money. I would still pick Boston, but I would think that they could make a competitive 6-game series out of that. And to be honest, like Boston, like for as good as they've been, they struggle in the last 5 minutes of games. And they shoot a lot of threes And, you welcome luck at that point. So when you're jacking up a lot of threes, you're welcoming the fact that there could be a night where you go 9 of 29 from three, or 11 of 40 from three, and your opponent gets hot. And like, I watched Jason Tatum, and I'm like, he can get to any spot on the floor that he wants. He's so good. And he's just taking these step back threes. And I'm like, he can get to the rim at will. Like, stop taking so many threes. And maybe that's because it's a regular season and guys are kind of checked out a little bit. But I mean, like, I just look at their style of play and I'm like, they struggle a little bit in crunch time. They rely on threes, which can fluctuate from, game to game, series to series.
To your point, I had Sergey Blanc on the podcast last week, and we were talking about the Celtics, and he had said a very interesting stat that coincides with everything you're saying here. So that in the first quarter of the games, the Celtics are number 1 in scoring in the whole night. Do you know what they rank in the fourth quarter?
Off the top of my head, I don't, but I'm sure it's probably pretty low.
Yeah, second to last.
Yeah.
Second to last. Because, again, the 3-point shooting, they rely on the 3-point shooting. The other teams come back in the game. They get very lackadaisical. And therefore, some of those losses they've had in this year, they have, the Atlanta loss last week when they blew a 3-point lead, the Cavs lost a few weeks back. Yeah, we agree Boston's a better team, especially now because they've added, a Drew Holiday, they've added a Porzingis, all that. But you get these reminders like, oh, so you are good, but sometimes you decide not to play 48 minutes of basketball. And again, we've seen the Celtic team let down, like last year, let down when you think they're ready to go, ready to be the next team, and you get those little reminders sometimes, like maybe there's still a slight possibility that they can blow it again.
And to play devil's advocate a little bit to those numbers about second to last, there also could be a lot of games where they're up by 30 going into the fourth quarter, and they're playing Svi Mykhailiuk, Jay Brissett, and things like that. So I mean, if they're playing their third string, that might be why they're scoring 21 points in some of those games. Not all of them, but I mean, that could skew the numbers a little bit too.
Of course, yeah, I totally agree with that.
But I mean, like, the X factor for them is Porzingis. I mean, like, he's the guy that other teams don't have an answer to. Right. I mean, he's like what Milwaukee wants Brook Lopez to be out there shooting threes. Like, Porzingis can actually shoot them. Like, he can capably shoot those threes. Like, Brook Lopez is out there stretching the floor, shooting 33, 34%. Like, Porzingis, if he's right, I mean, I know he struggled lately the past few games shooting threes, but I mean, he could shoot it at a 40% clip. And, you can put him in actions that other teams just simply can't guard. So, I mean, if they're utilizing him properly, I think that's what makes them so dangerous. And it's just funny looking back on all the offseason talk about how everyone was freaking out about how they traded Marcus Smart in the heart of their team, and they wound up getting Drew Holiday, who's a better version of Marcus Smart. And you're adding Porzingis, who is, there's not many people like him in terms of 7'3", 7'4", can shoot threes.
So where would you put Philadelphia's ceiling now with Embiid back?
I think that if they can stay healthy through these last 6 games and get into the playoffs healthy, I would say they could go to the conference finals still. I would still pick Boston over them. But I mean, I would still take them with Maxey, with Embiid, with some of the guys they've added. If Melton can come back. I mean, like, some of those role players are important when you're basically relying on 2 guys. So if they're relatively healthy, I still think that Embiid's the best player in the world. So, I mean, he right there with Jokic, basically. So, I mean, you could take 1 or 2, in whatever order you want. But I would still pick Boston, but I think that Philly's ceiling is right there. So he came back just in the right time. So.
He came back on Tuesday and had the numbers weren't efficient, but he still had made a splash.
He was gassed. So I mean, you're just using these last 5-6 games to sort of get his stamina up, get his wind up, and it's funny. Like, I saw all these shows, all these people on Twitter, and I tweeted out about this a number of times, saying that like, oh, they should shut Embiid down for the year. It's not worth the risk. I'm like, look, he's 30 years old. How many more cracks at a title does he have in his prime?
Right.
Because by 33, he might not be the same player. So, I mean, if he's healthy this Eastern Conference is wide open. You're not going to have to run the gauntlet like you do in the West. Like in the West, you could take the 11 seeded Rockets and make an argument for them in certain matchups. Like you can't do that in the East. Like basically like the East, it's Boston, and like you could talk me into any other team like making a run.
No, I'm with you. Look, his window might be literally 2 years, if that.
Yeah.
Because with his body and his, his ability to get hurt a lot, you can't play with time. You got to take advantage of that. I agree with you 100% on that. Now, one story that might be a little on the radar because his team sucks, but this dude is ascending as we end this season, and that's Victor Wembanyama. I know there's talk for a little while. We may have discussed on the last time we were on the podcast that Rookie of the Year talk, him and Chet. It might have been. There's a case of Chet Rookie of the Year. Maybe it was a wash. Now, of course, it was a month and a half ago. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think Wemby's taking the baton and run with it.
No, he's totally locked it up. I mean, the first month or two of the season, I was saying that Chet was impressing, that Wemby was starting off slow, but I mean, you can just see the difference. I mean, Wembenyama is a guy who's got multiple MVPs, Defensive Player of the Year awards ahead of him, assuming he can stay healthy.
Of course.
I mean, he's been as advertised. I would say better than advertised. He's been shooting, he's been shooting the three better than I ever expected. And I mean, there was a play last week. I can't remember which team they were playing.
New York?
No, it was somebody else where they had like a 2-on-1 fast break, and he was the one, and you had like two different guys like basically like serpentine out of the lane because they didn't even want to attempt to go for a layup. So I mean, like the one guy was going to the rim and then he circled back out, and then he passed it to the guy trailing, and then he was going to the rim and he saw Wembenyama there and he circled back out. Like he's just such a deterrent at the rim. So he's already a top 2-3 Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And I mean, he's already giving you 20 and 10 nightly, with 3-4 blocks. I mean, what's he going to be when he learns how to play? When he learns the NBA game.
And what we're seeing, I made this proclamation like months ago now. What we're seeing now, and maybe even sooner, I think he will be the best player in basketball within 5 years.
Oh yeah, totally. I would agree with that.
And maybe sooner than that, because they don't even run the offense around him still, and he's still scoring as much as he is right now. And wait till they actually get players that actually fit that team, because a lot of those guys on that roster, you watch those Spurs games, like they're just chucking the ball up for sake of chucking the ball up. These guys are just playing for, I guess, attention, new contracts maybe, and I get it, but it's Wemby's team, and and yet Wemby still finds a way to somehow fall into a 30-point game, a 40-point game even, and all that. I just think that, when we come back here in 3-4 years, on this podcast, I have more gray on my goatee, we'll be discussing Wembenyama as the number one guy in the league, and it's probably not going to be close.
Yeah, it's going to be LeBron and Durant passing the torch to Wembenyama. So it's although you have guys like Doncic and Giannis who are amazing, but I mean, like when you talk about those legendary like top 10 caliber players, you anticipate him being that. And I guess the only problem for him is that, and I heard someone else say this, it might have been on the Simmons and Russillo podcast, but like he's either going to be that legend where he's like a top 5 player, or we're going to look back, of all time, or we're going to look back at him as a disappointment because he didn't become that.
And it's not fair, because why couldn't he be a top 10 guy and be okay with that? But the thing is, though, for all the hype we heard about Wemby, coming into the draft last year, you watch him and you see a lot of these flashes. You see the potential of that top 5 guy all time. You see it. It's like, oh, I can see that. Definitely see that coming. He's special. He's 7'4". He can shoot. He can run like a gazelle, the whole 9. And he's only 19 years old. Just wait till he gets all together. And the best part, I'll say it again, he's one of the best basketball I've ever seen in basketball. Greg Popovich.
Yeah, the key now is just surrounding him with the right players. And it'll be interesting to see, but San Antonio's got a lot of assets, a lot of draft capital. Mm-hmm. Are they incentivized sooner to try and go out and add someone? Or because like you look at next year, the 2025 draft is what many people say going to be like a legendary draft. And again, those things are impossible to predict, but everyone, for the most part that you listen to, says 2024 is a weak draft. 2025 is going to be amazing. Do the Spurs pretty much just sit on their their war chest of assets and say, we're going to slow play this for another year and try and surround him with another player, or seeing how good he's been, do you then think, oh, maybe if we go and add another top 15, top 20 player to put around him and try and become more competitive, it'll just be interesting to see how they choose to play this offseason, knowing that they have the assets to improve.
Yeah, definitely. What about the MVP discussion? Where are you at on that? You still believe it's two-man race, right?
I mean, I'd probably be inclined, and I mean, again, you could give it to Jokic every year, but I mean, I'd be inclined more to give to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander than to Jokic, only because they pretty much came out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And I was listening to a different pod the other day, and they were looking at a lot of the metrics for Jokic, and I think it was like defensive-minded metrics, but like that his numbers were kind of down across the board. So I mean, like, even though he's been amazing and he puts up amazing numbers, I don't know. I look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and maybe it's like the Derrick Rose theory versus LeBron James. Maybe it's like, oh, we could give the MVP to Jokic every year. I mean, I wouldn't argue with giving it to Jokic. I mean, he's right there, best player in the world. He plays every night, never gets hurt. Always puts up big numbers, never has a bad shooting night. But I mean, I look at Shai, and like he's carried a team that the average fan doesn't know like the names on that team. Like it's not like, you're putting him with Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr., people that they know. I mean, I'm sure most people don't even know Jalen Williams, although they should, because I feel like he's going to be a perennial all-star too. So Chet Holmgren, I guess people know, but I mean, like, he's really taken a young team on his back, and to have what's amazing is just how competitive they are night to night. Even in games where they're missing guys. I mean, like when they played the Knicks the other night, I mean, it's like, I don't know. I thought that was a game the Knicks were going to take just because, Oklahoma City's on the road and, missing a few guys, and, there he is hitting a step back jumper to win the game in the corner. So, I mean, like he's been better than advertised. And I mean, the record speaks for itself. So.
Well, I mean, I'm definitely in the camp of SGA by a smidge, but it's still a race, a two-man race. Like, there's all the players really in it. I mean, we want to do a top five. It's going to be like number 3 is probably between Jason Tatum and Jalen Brunson. I would probably put those two guys there, and then Doncic really at this point.
Or Luka. Yeah, I mean, you're probably putting Luka in there. I mean, Brunson, unfortunately, is going to be a victim of his team's lack of success.
Sliding
the last month of the season. I mean, at the very least, had OG stayed healthy, we might be having a different conversation. But you lose OG and Randle, you're asking him to do an awful lot. And I mean, even though he's done an awful lot, I mean, again, he scores 60 points and they lose to the Spurs. Now, granted, Wemby went for 40 and 20, but I mean, it's like scoring 60 does not guarantee you anything, with that team, given what they're missing.
Right. So I will say that. Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's to his detriment, the lack of team success. Whereas you look at Dallas, they've been ascending. You look at Oklahoma City, Denver, like the records typically line up with who is in that final race.
Much like the to me, it's going to come down to the standings for the if SGA is number 1 in the West when it's all said and done. Got to give it to him. Sorry. Yeah. I think the standings could hurt Brunson not only in the MVP rankings, but also. Because I was saying last week that Jalen Brunson is all NBA first team at this point. But if they slip next week or two, then that could change.
But I think worst case scenario, he's still second team.
That's his bottomless point now.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like he's going to fall out of it completely. I mean, like if I look at some of the other point guards, I would take Brunson over Halliburton, for example. I feel like Halliburton the last month has really struggled, whereas Brunson's just been totally steady. So I mean, Brunson is still in that conversation for 2 or 3, maybe 4 players. So, I mean, he's definitely a lock, I would say, for no worse than second team All-NBA.
Right. No, I'm with you on that one. All right. Let's if I can bring this up real quick. Look at the standings. It's time for the standings. If I can get this up real quick. And what I want to do here, Greg, I want to look at the standings where we're at now as recording. I want you to see. Hold on. Where is it right here? There it is right there. Okay. Do you see that, sir? Do you see the standings?
I do not see the standings. Oh, now I do.
Okay, now. Okay. This is right now the Eastern Conference right now. We're breaking down Eastern Conference. Obviously the way it works on the playoffs, it's Top 6 teams are guaranteed to get into the playoffs. 7 through 10 playing in the playing tournament, and then of course 11 through 15 are Dunsky. Right now, currently 1 through 6 are Boston, Milwaukee, Cleveland, Orlando, New York, and Miami. 7 through 10 currently is Indiana, Philadelphia, Chicago, and Atlanta. Obviously, 11 to 15, they're all out. Atlanta's guaranteed to be in the play no matter what. So 11 to 15 are officially all out. Let's go to the 6 first. Do these 6 teams hold, Greg? And if not, what changes?
Yeah, I think I would say those hold. I think the Pacers probably will wind up in the play-in, which is kind of a disappointment for them. I think the Sixers, I mean, again, if they win out, that puts them at 47 wins. I mean, I guess the Sixers theoretically could sneak out of there. I mean, I don't think Miami's got a super tough schedule either. I think
that game they play tonight. Philadelphia, Miami play tonight, so it's a huge game.
Yeah, but I think that's going to be like the long. Well, no, I guess Miami still plays Dallas, so I mean that's still a tough game.
They do? Oh, okay.
Yeah, they play Dallas and Indiana. So I mean, I guess there could still be some movement there. I mean, the Sixers are the team that could move out of there. I would say, like, if there's going to be a flip flop, I would say the Pacers are probably good at 7. Could the Sixers move up to 6? I would say that's possible, but I think Miami and the Sixers are jockeying for that last spot.
Yeah, New York, and again, New York is not too far out of that spot if they're not careful. I know they lost 3 in a row. And we'll see the schedule, obviously, how it looks like. But
they had the Knicks have 3 games left against the Bulls. So I mean,
okay.
Assuming that let's say they win 2 of those games, that should keep them safe.
That should be it should keep them okay. Because right now they're only 2 games ahead of the 7th seed.
Yeah, So I mean, like they're still in a little bit of peril too. I mean, it's not like they're safe by any stretch.
I feel like the sweet spot here is you're gonna get 5 or 6. If you can draw Orlando or draw Cleveland in the first round, I think you feel good about your chances.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at those standings and I'm saying whatever team gets Cleveland and the Magic are going to move on, and that's no knock, I guess, on those teams. It's just that Cleveland, for me, has been a disappointment all season. I mean, they had that stretch of a month where they had all these injuries, and Donovan Mitchell was going out and balling every night, and they went like 18-2 or whatever it was. And since then, it's just like they've fallen off a cliff. And I mean, like they should be right there with. I know that they are in the standings with the Celtics and the Bucks, but I don't think people take them seriously.
Lost 6 to 10 also too. I don't trust them.
No. I mean, after what I saw last year, and the Magic, I think, are just a year away. And I think they need like one more guy. Like I think that they need like a capable point guard. Like if you're looking at a team to go out and trade for like a ball handler. In the offseason, I would say the Magic, with all their assets, should probably be that team.
I mean, you look at this. I mean, not in the standings either. Obviously, standings reflect this, but it feels like Boston or bust.
Yeah, no. It's got to be Boston has to win a title this year. Even if they get to the finals and lose, to me, that's still disappointment. Like they've got to win. They've got to win a title this year. Because these guys have been together so long, you can't knock continuity. They got better pretty much at every single position. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are all-world players. I mean, Porzingis and Jrue Holiday on any given night could be the 3rd or the 4th player. Derek White is having the best season of his career. I mean, you could make an argument for Derek White being the 3rd best player, or Porzingis being the 3rd best player, or Holiday being the 3rd best player. And you look at the bench, you got Horford coming off. He doesn't need to play 35 minutes a night. You can play him 20 minutes and feel good about it. I mean, they've set this thing up. So, I mean, this has got to be their year. I mean, even if they play the Nuggets, I mean, people are going to say, oh, the Nuggets beat them twice in the regular season. Those were both possession games.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like the Nuggets went out and beat them by 20 in 2 games. Like it's a super small sample size of games that were decided basically at the buzzer.
Very true. Very true. I think this, for the most part, holds. I can definitely see New York, if they're not careful, getting not that spot. But again, you said Chicago 3 times, so that could be what saves them. Philadelphia is the one team I believe that is capable of slipping. I think this game tonight's huge. Miami, I think if Miami wins this game against Philadelphia, I think they're, in my opinion, that they may be close to locking up a 5 or 6 seed, because they're actually right now only 2 back of the 5 seed. They beat New York on Tuesday. And we'll see how New York plays at the end of the year. But Miami could be the position where, like, I think they win tonight, I would feel even better about the chance of having a top 6 seed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you ask any NBA executive, the team that scares them the most after the Celtics is Miami. So, I mean, more than the Bucks, more than the Sixers. I mean, the Sixers would scare me the most just because they'd have the best player on any given night.
Yeah.
Granted, we don't know what his health status is, but I mean, they're trotting out the best player in any given matchup, even against the Celtics. But in Miami, with their coaching, with the way they play, with the way Jimmy Butler ascends in the playoffs, I think that most people would say that Miami is the most dangerous on that list outside Boston.
Yeah. All right. Western Conference. This is more fun. East is not bad, but this is where the fun begins, because you still got pretty much a 3-team race for the 1 seed between Minnesota, Denver, OKC. So real quick, top 6 first in the West: Minnesota, Denver, OKC, Clippers, Dallas, and Phoenix in that order. Then you got the 7 through 10, which is even more fun, the play-in situation. New Orleans all of a sudden lost 3 in a row. Sacramento in the play-in. Lakers and Warriors, the Warriors are red hot actually right now too. So I guess the question really is this. First off, the top of the conference. I mean, it's clear that the Clippers are going to be probably the 4 seed. Probably the 4 seed. Yeah, most likely. 2 ahead of 5, 3 back of a 4 back rather, 4.5 back of the 3 seed. So I think 4 is the lock for the Clippers. Who's in the 1 seed? What changes here on top for the West?
I'd probably take the Nuggets for the 1 seed. Probably the Timberwolves for the 2. And I said before the year, I was talking to someone from Denver. I'm like, I don't think Denver's going to be as good this year, just because I feel like there's going to be some championship hangover. Granted, when I said I didn't think they were going to be as good, I figured they'd be like the 3 seed. So I guess they could still theoretically be the 3 seed. Right. But I mean, I think that they've played at a higher level than I would have expected, given that you play an extra month and a half, you win a title, you come back short off season, and they stayed relatively healthy. Mm-hmm. And here they are again. I think what makes them so dangerous is the offense. I look at Minnesota. I think they're going to get bogged down in some games in the last 2 minutes. Whereas, I know that Murray, Jokic pick and roll, you can set your watch to it. I know that they're going to be able to execute in crunch time. I don't know that Minnesota or OKC or the Clippers are going to be able to execute in crunch time. I'd feel good about Dallas executing in crunch time, but I don't think that they're on the same level necessarily as the Nuggets.
Right. So you go Denver as a 1 seed?
Yeah, I would say Denver, Minnesota, OKC. But I mean, again, the East was easy because it's Boston and then everybody else. The West, I could make an argument for any one of those teams on that list going to the conference finals.
I think number 2 is actually wide open. It goes 8, 9 deep.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. All these teams are competitive. I don't think all those teams in the East are competitive. I could make an argument that the Lakers, with the right matchups, could wind up in the conference finals again. And right now they're the 9 seed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you have a healthy LeBron and a healthy AD, maybe Vanderbilt comes back. You got Vincent back recently. I could make an argument for that.
And
I could make an argument for the Pelicans. Brandon Ingram comes back. Trey Murphy's good. McCollum's good. Zion's healthy. I mean, I know they've struggled, but I mean, I can make an argument for any one of those teams.
And the Lakers, quite as kept. They're only a game and a half behind for the 6 seed, so they can still climb out that playing. They're red hot. 8 last 10, 1 3 in a row. So it feels like, the Clippers are a lock at 4 at this point for me. I think the fun begins really from 5 through 10. Or 5 through 9. I think Golden State will be the number 10 play-in. 5 through 9 is where the fun begins. 2 play-in spots, 2 playoff spots for 5 teams. Dallas, Phoenix, New Orleans, Sacramento, and the Lakers. Pelicans all of a sudden starting to slip a little bit too, especially they lost 3 in a row. They were the quiet team in the West for weeks, and all of a sudden now they lost 3 in a row, and all of a sudden they went from a team that was in range to get a 4 seed. Now they're in a playing situation now.
The most important thing for me, especially throughout the past month, is looking at strength of schedule throughout. So, I mean, I quoted you, Philadelphia having the weakest strength of schedule. I mean, right now, Phoenix has the toughest schedule left in the league. And I mean, again, we're doing it on a small sample size because we're talking about. Say it again.
They're playing much better now. They won 7 last 10 games.
Phoenix is playing great. They have the toughest schedule though. They play Minnesota twice. They play the Clippers twice. They play Sacramento. They play New Orleans. So they don't have a gimme on their schedule. They don't have like a Charlotte in there. They don't have a Portland in there. They don't have a Utah in there or Memphis in there. Like they're going to have to continue playing at that level.
They're playing basketball now.
Yeah. Whereas New Orleans, like they get San Antonio and Portland in 2 of their last 6 games.
Okay.
And they also get Golden State. They get the Lakers. They get Sacramento. So, I mean, like I look at New Orleans and I'm like, Phoenix is probably a better team, but just based on the schedule, Dallas has got 7 games left. They've got 1 against the Pistons, 1 against the Hornets. So, I mean, those are 2 gimmies, I would say. They also get Houston. They also get Atlanta. So, I mean, if you look at Dallas, add 4 more wins, that puts them at 49. That's probably enough to keep them ahead of the Suns, just given the schedule.
Is Dallas the most dangerous team in the West?
It's interesting. It's like when I watch them play, I'm like, wow, this team could be, like you said, the most dangerous team. But then I keep going back to like when Kyrie and KD were together with the Nets and they got swept by the Celtics in the first round. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, how much different is it than like Kyrie with KD versus Kyrie with Luka?
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously Luka is younger and, spreads the ball around and plays a different style. But like, I don't know, there's just still something in my mind that makes me wonder, like if Kyrie can be like a pivotal, like, swinging a series basically. But I mean, I loved what they did at the deadline. I thought Gafford was a great move because you need a rim running center to play with Luka. I think PJ Washington was a huge upgrade. I mean, especially over Grant Williams, he was a huge upgrade.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it goes back to the conversation where I could make an argument for any of those teams. I could make an argument for Dallas beating the Nuggets in a playoff series. I could make an argument for Dallas beating the Timberwolves. I mean, I don't think that there's a team on that list that I could say, oh, they'll definitely wipe the floor with Dallas. I mean, you could make that argument.
Of course. So you believe right now the five right now are guaranteed to get in locks for you. To Minnesota, obviously Minnesota, Denver, OKC, Clippers are locks, and then Dallas is a lock for you, right?
I would say Dallas is a lock just based on their schedule.
Right. And who would you pick the 6th team to get the 6th spot? To avoid a play-in of these 4 teams: Phoenix, Pelicans, Kings, Lakers, and I'll say Golden State is because it's still technically still in range, but I don't think they'll get there. But of those 6 teams or 5 teams rather, who gets that last playoff spot?
It's a real toss-up between the Suns and the Pelicans, only because the Suns to me are the better team, but the Pelicans have the softer schedule. So I'm gonna say the Suns only because I feel like they're better, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Pelicans wound up at 6.
The Kings feel disappointing this year too, even though they're still solid. The Kings feel disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, they sort of stood pat. I mean, they didn't try and push all their chips into the middle. It's basically like, we're going to let Keegan Murray develop. We're going to let Fox continue to develop.
Yeah.
Sabonis is rock steady. And what hurt them is that you lose Kevin Huerter and Malik Monk basically for the season. I mean, those are 2 of their key role players. I mean, Malik Monk's probably 6th man of the year. He might still have he still might have played enough games to win 6th man of the year. So, I mean, he could still win that award. But, I mean, that's going down the stretch. That's a tough move. But they didn't go all in. They didn't try and move Harrison Barnes' contract and a bunch of picks to try and upgrade. They basically just said, like, we're content with being maybe a 5 seed, maybe a 9 seed, and then we're just going to hope for development and kick the can down the road.
Right. One last thing on this conference, the Warriors. I know we spoke on this podcast this season about the Warriors, and everything's been negative on the Warriors. But all of a sudden now they won 7 last 10, won 5 in a row. Do you see the legend that could get back to the conference finals again, at least?
No, mainly because they are going to have to play the 1 seed, and if the 1 seed is the Nuggets, I'm going to take the Nuggets in that matchup. Now, if Oklahoma City or Minnesota wind up as the 1 seed, maybe it's a different conversation. But I think I would still take Minnesota over the Warriors.
Really? Interesting.
Well, because you can put Jaden McDaniels on Curry and have him run around with them. I still don't think Clay is the same player. And then you're relying a lot on Kuminga and Brandon Podziemski to play like major roles. Right. I think that Minnesota would have the defensive guys that can give them a lot of trouble. And I think Anthony Edwards is a great defender too. You could run McDaniels and Edwards out to the perimeter and have them switch, in pick and rolls and have one guard Curry. So I don't know that I still think that the Warriors their time has sort of passed, although I do give them credit for closing the season strongly.
Yeah, I do too. But I first off, I didn't know they survived the Lakers, honestly. I don't know if people survived that, honestly.
Yeah.
So
but I'm saying, let's say, well, I mean, you could also get the Kings dropping back into 9.
Right.
Because the Kings play the Knicks. Let me see. Who do the Kings have? I mean, they don't have a super easy schedule. No, Sacramento's got the 6th hardest schedule left in the league. So Sacramento still has to play Boston, OKC. They play Boston, OKC, Phoenix, New Orleans, the Knicks, and the Nets. And so the Nets and Portland, I would say, are the 2 easier games. Again, I don't know what the Nets are going to be playing for at that point. We already know that Portland is throwing in the towel. So, I mean, Sacramento's got 1 locked up win, you would think, against Portland. But, I could see them losing all the rest of those games. Maybe, take out the Nets game. But Boston, OKC, Phoenix, to me, those are losses for Sacramento.
Yeah, I wouldn't call them volatile because they still won 44 games this year. It's still pretty impressive with that conference, and it's still a young team. But I feel like they are pretty much chalk last year. Maybe a little bit of a disappointment. Well, I guess because last year came out of nowhere, so we did this year have more expectations attached to it. So I get that, but I don't know, man. We'll see. It's gonna be a fun week and a half. Last week and a half of positioning, if you will.
Yeah, that's why I said right at the beginning, this is not the time to disengage. Every night.
Oh, no, I'm in. I'm still one. I'm making sure tonight, especially to the Sixers Heat game tonight too. So
yeah, and also the Knicks play the Kings. So I mean, we were just talking about the jockeying around for playoff seeding. I mean, if the Kings lose, maybe now they're looking at being a 9 seed, and the Lakers can move up. Or if the Knicks win and then the Knicks win, they're obviously moving away from the play-in. So
if the Knicks lose, they get closer to the play-in situation too.
Sure. Yeah. So every night for the next week, teams are moving around. So it'll be interesting.
Right. All right. One last thing to get out of here. One last thing. LeBron James had a huge game against Brooklyn on, I think it was Sunday or Monday, one or two was. But after the game, the word retirement came up again. I don't know how, but he brought it up, basically saying, quote, how much longer his play? He said, quote, not very long. Basically, quote, I'm on the other side of the hill, so I'm not going to play another 21 years. That's for damn sure, but not very long. I don't know what or when that door will close as far as when I retire, but I have that much time left. I mean, you're not playing another 21 years. We know that already. But this could be anywhere. To me, I read this, I'm like, okay, you probably anywhere from 1 to 5 years.
Yeah, I would say that's fair.
I would lean on the latter more, to be honest with you, the way he's playing.
Yeah, I would say 2 to 3 years that he'll play. I don't see him, and we talked about it before, it could be like a Seinfeld situation where he wants to go out on top.
Yeah.
But he still is kind of, at the top and will be in 2 years, perhaps. He's playing so well. I mean, that game against the Nets, I mean, he was 9 of 10 from 3.
Yeah.
I mean, remember early in his career, the knock on him was that he couldn't shoot. And so it's like now he's shooting the best percentage of his career from 3. So, I mean, he's so good, his ability to revamp his game to adjust to whatever's needed, whatever his body can do. He will optimize that so that he can still play peak performance. So I mean, it's still amazing to watch him. What he does, and I mean, his court vision, his passing. I mean, he's still one of the all-time greats as far as how he reads the game, his IQ. As long as his body doesn't let him down, I mean, there's no reason why he can't play 2 or 3 more years at this level that he's at now.
Right. So we discussed the retirement window for him, 2 or 3 years. You think? I say 2, 3, 4, even 5 years. What about the title window though? Championship window? Like, is it how long? How much longer do you think he has to win to legitimately be a title contender? In your opinion?
Well, I figure they're going to make a big swing in the offseason. So they're going to try and add someone, I mean, again, I don't know how necessarily you go about doing that, given, I know that a couple first rounders will open up for them just based on, you can't trade first in consecutive years, but then once the new league year starts, that opens up another first that you can trade. Yeah. So, I mean, they could conceivably trade 2 picks and some expiring salary. Is that enough to get a Trae Young or somebody like that? I have no idea. But I think they're gonna go for a big swing, and then that basically gives you next year and maybe the year after as the last hurrah for him, AD, and whatever player that they go for.
Any names you come to mind other than Trae Young?
I mean, I'm sure Zach LaVine's name will come up. I mean, I don't know if that moves the needle, but I mean, he is a really good shooter, and anytime you put a good shooter with LeBron, maybe that moves the needle a little bit. But I mean, his contract is so bad. Granted, with LeBron at the tail end of his career, I don't know if you're worried about draft picks and contracts. You're looking at maximizing what you can put on the floor. So,
right.
And also it's going to depend on who wants out. I mean, every summer we wind up having one of these dramas where, 2 years ago it was Kevin Durant demanded a trade. Last year it was Damian Lillard that demanded a trade. Like, maybe Donovan Mitchell demands a trade this year, or maybe he resigns. Who knows? I mean, it's hard to say which player is going to get fed up, and a lot of that's going to depend on how the playoffs go. So, I mean, if Cleveland winds up surprising and winning 2 rounds, I don't think Donovan Mitchell's demanding a trade. But if they wind up losing in 5 to Miami, he's probably going to say, I'm not re-signing there, and get as much as you can for me. So,
yeah,
a lot is going to depend on the next 2 months and how the playoffs go.
And I feel like because there's still a wide openness in the Western Conference outside Denver, that keeps LeBron's, that keeps LeBron's window open, because we're still saying that he can get to conference finals. If hypothetically someone beats Denver in the first round, second round of the playoffs, it ain't gonna happen. But let's say it's second round playoffs, Phoenix beats them. Hypothetically, all of a sudden, now the Lakers are in play to go to the finals, because I think they could beat Phoenix in a 7-game series.
Yeah. No. I mean, the Lakers, like, I can make an argument for them, like, going on a deep run. I mean, like, I could make more of an argument for them, I feel like, than I can for the Clippers. So, I mean, they're there. It's just a matter of what can they add going forward. But, I mean, even just right now,
right,
if you have LeBron and AD healthy, I mean, you're not getting a much better duo than that. So,
yeah, we'll see how that plays out, man. But it's going to be a very fascinating final. Was it like 9 days left?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. 9 days left. Oh my God, crazy. So basically, this weekend and the weekend after, and that's it.
Yep.
Whew, that's crazy. Anyway, follow Greg on Twitter /X at G Hrinya NBA. That's GHRINYA NBA. Of course, he has a book of the 5-year plan of the Nets' tumultuous journey from New Jersey to Brooklyn. Greg was awesome as always, man.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.